I want you to imagine a Congress where the same people are holding power for 40, 50, and even 60 years, making decisions that affect our future, creating laws and taxes that directly affect our communities. Meanwhile, these people consistently have a national approval rating that sits at just 18%. This is the reality of the world that we live in today. Members of Congress who have served since the 1970s continue to hold on to power and stay completely unchanged and unhindered in their ways. While the world continues to change around them, these people never change. This isn't some sort of fun fact. It's a genuine problem that has a real chokehold on our democracy. Today, I'm going to show you why we need term limits for our Congress and how you can make it happen. Our Congress is consistently plagued by politicians who make a career out of serving in office. They stay for decades, creating systems where they are ingrained in power, which immediately eliminates any possibility for fresh ideas or genuine options for voters. According to the Congressional Research Service, in 2024, there are some senators who have been in office for 40 years and have served an average of 10 years. These long tenures lead to complacency, and they will negatively enable voters not to think about who they're voting for when they go into the voting box. They will simply choose the person that is in power, making it easier for them. It's someone that aligns with their political party, and it makes their job simple. These people continue to dismiss pressing issues like healthcare, infrastructure, and climate change. They build networks and influence that keep them in power and make it difficult for any sort of fresh new candidate, especially a young one or one from an underrepresented group, to break through. This isn't just about stale ideas. A 2023 Pew Research poll found that 80% of Americans support term limits. Now, the support for this is because many people see Congress as very outdated and out of touch, and it continues to have an 18% approval rating. The performance is down and change is needed. These long-term politicians developed a completely regulated, unchecked power. They develop corruption scandals involving lobbying. They have relationships to billionaires that connect them to their positions for long periods of time. The longer that these people stay in power, the more difficult it is for them to get out, and the more they will continue to prioritize their needs over yours. As college students, it is our job to recognize this because we are the ones inheriting this system. We're the ones who will face the consequences of a Congress that resists change. We have no fresh ideas or young minds that are tackling student debt, that are tackling the climate, infrastructure, or job creation. If we don't act, the same faces will continue to make decisions for us that don't reflect what we need in our futures. Despite these overwhelming negatives, there is a straightforward solution that we can work on, and that is honestly already working in other places, primarily on the state level. And I think it's time that we all bring it to Washington. We need term limits for Congress. We need a maximum of 12 years for any House representative, which is 6 terms. And I think for senators, we should implement 12 years, which is just 2 terms, much like the presidency. This would require a constitutional amendment. Now, this amendment would make it very clear and set a final and clear cap for these term limits. This would enforce that elected officials focus on governing rather than constantly campaigning and constantly lobbying so they can make a career out of staying in power. Now, there are states that are already doing this, like California and Michigan. They have limits for their legislators. And this proves that this is feasible. Now, it would be very difficult for Congress itself to propose this amendment. However, we could all push our individual states to call a constitutional convention, which is very rare but possible, and push this amendment forward. Now, term limits work. In 2021, Cato Institute, they did a study on these specific state legislators that had term limits. And this study exposed the fact that term limits are actually a great thing that increased competition among voters. It reduced the career advantage and encouraged fresh ideas and new innovative policies. In California, term limits since 1990 have continued to lead to more diverse representation and fresh ideas. With younger minds, with underrepresented leadership that continues to make great change. Now, this could happen federally, breaking the 40-plus year stronghold of these career politicians. Now, I want you to picture this and what this could mean for our country and what happens if we don't act. We could have a Congress that is filled with fresh and young minds that directly relate to the issues that we go through every single day. People like us will have bold ideas on technology, on artificial intelligence, on equity, and on the climate that are not beholden to these age-old agendas or these lobbies, right? Now, we could continue to stay in the same track that we are in now with boring, old ideas that lead to no progress. Without these term limits, we are stuck with a Congress that continues to dominate, where gridlock continues to breed stagnant results, and where our voices continually get drowned out by special interests and people trying to make a career instead of trying to help. In 10 years, we could still be complaining about this same stagnant leadership, or we could make a genuine change. With term limits, we could get a dynamic and a responsive and a fresh young government. Without them, we could risk a future where our power is gone from us and it continues to stay with the old and stale ideas of the past. This is within our reach, but it starts with us taking action today. I'm asking all of us to take simple steps like signing the U.S. Term Limits Pledge, which you can access online at termlimits.com. This is simply a public commitment that would show that you have the back of candidates who support this change. And secondly, don't be afraid to talk about this with your friends, and don't be afraid to talk about this on social media. Remember, you are in the very, very, very vast majority. 90% of people believe that this needs to happen, that there needs to be term limits for these congressional offices. This isn't an issue of conservative or liberal or right or left. This is an issue that could truly unite us all. These term limits that we could enact on these congressmen, this could break a decade-old cycle and bring in fresh ideas and make our government a place that actually has our interests in mind and helps our generations and our community and reflects true democracy in our government.